Hey guys, Ryan here to talk about the Lightning Collection doing justice to the third season and kind of the movie of Mighty Morphin. Also, I hope you'll stick around at the end where I'm editing in from the future to talk about something kind of fun. So 1995 was a huge year for Power Rangers, going off the American air dates. After scattering the last 13 episodes of Season 2 between February and May, the 20th Century Fox produced movie then opened in June 1995, and just 3 months later, Season 3 started, and unlike Season 2, which had a lot of hiatuses and took 10 months to air, it looks like the 33 episodes of Season 3 aired in just 3 months with no breaks. That's treating Alien Rangers as its own thing, which followed in February 1996, but that's appropriate as this was the end of the Zyuranger and Dairanger suit designs. While we definitely didn't know it, and some of us probably didn't feel it at the time, by this point we were really circling the drain of Mighty Morphin, as this took us from its 99th all the way up to its 145th episode in that year. Think about how that compares to the episode counts we get these days. I think the real missed opportunity of Season 3 was not adapting the suits slightly, specifically the helmets and power coins. They could have incorporated the ninja animals into the mmpr design. That's the sort of thing I'd expect they would do now. But perhaps helmet sculpting is expensive, perhaps they were superstitious on ditching their successful designs, perhaps they couldn't see the appeal or benefit of redoing toys with such small differences that most probably wouldn't notice. Anyway, they kept the supply chain coming, and Season 3 gave us the most new looks for Mighty Morphin we'd ever get, as they really lent into the idea of selling more action figures. And here we are, 28 years later, not much has changed. But the fact that they introduced these new designs, which feel so classic and nostalgic now, we're able to make this whole other video about Mighty Morphin where it both feels completely part of it, but also quite far removed from those naive days of Season 1. Let's talk about Season 3 and movie in the Lightning Collection. Number 5, The Mighty Morphin Well. Season 3 had a lot going on story-wise, and they still managed to give us another cast member swap out, done right this time, as Amy Jo Johnson left on good terms, so they wrote her a harrowing multi-episode exit storyline that also brought in another evil ranger turned good, Kat. Bandai and Saban really were trying to balance the need to sell toys with story in both a more and less effective way. The negotiation between the movie and what followed into the different continuity of Season 3 is interesting. The actual movie suits were somehow off limits, and in their place we got sparkly spandex armor. It was the 90s, and that sparkly aesthetic was everywhere. I guess you had to be there. But the Ninjetti, newly termed Ninja Power Ranger suits, were fair game to appear in the TV show for reasons. What was the story behind the metallic armor? Were they just really struggling after 120 episodes to know what to do next? So they started what has ironically become a staple of the franchise, even on much lower episode counts, the power-up suits. They try to keep them as close to the mmpr as they can for metallic. I think Bandai were really clever with how they did the movie action figures. They basically took the Automorphins, removed the head flip component, and made them shiny. It wasn't quite the same aesthetic of the movie leather-panelled suits that we'd see from them 20 years later, but it was a clever way to draw a distinction to the toys already on the shelves, and meant they could be reused with the flip head feature reintroduced and re-release them as Season 3 special editions, sort of as the Metallic Rangers, though they definitely should have swapped out the Kimberly head for Kat, as Kim never even got to use this mode. The Ninja Rangers are super interesting because it blends the colours of Mighty Morphin with the actors with the powers of Kaku Ranger, the Sentai. These all got figures, again apart from Kat, back in the 90s, and were badged as being from the TV series, despite using the movie-utilised masks. Honestly, I'm glad they did that, as the full wrap masks just never looked very good to me personally. And lastly, on what Hasbro have been able to draw out of the Mighty Morphin Well, Tengu Warriors. I mean, I never had any of Bandai's old versions, but they look rough. Of course, this isn't the first time those Season 3 designs were drawn on. In 2017, Bandai mooted their legacy metallic Ranger figures as a bit of a pseudo-fix for the lack of signature weapons in the original first 3 waves of legacy figures. You might remember Wave 3 was my first ever Power Ranger Tube review. But they were a commiseratory buy, a bit of a, we didn't give you what you wanted, so here is what you want, but it will cost you all over again. Sorry. Hasbro effectively did the same thing here, and it could have backfired in a similar way. But you know what? I think they nailed this set. The decision to start with Kat was a clever one, as we didn't have her head sculpt in the Lightning Collection at the time. We knew we'd get it for Zeo anyway, so this wasn't one that I rushed out for when it first came out, but then, when they announced that the next 4 were coming together, and that they'd fixed the Red Ranger helmet, it became a must-buy team for me. The other thing I loved about this set, apart from better helmets for the middle wave and head sculpts for Billy and Rocky, was the integration with the shards of the Zeo crystal. And then Tommy got the completely reassembled version of it, which is actually appropriate to the storyline too. It's nice that they overlapped in that bit of the story as additional accessories. That really made me eat these figures up. Plus, they glow in the dark, and the weapons are metallic too. All in all, the metallics are double dips done right, because they added to and improved upon the originals. I didn't want the first metallic figures from the Legacy line, but I absolutely couldn't refuse these. Number 4, A Moment of Silence. These are the final complete teams to be released in the original boxes, with the Tom Whalen artwork, the nice matching spines, the window that shows you most of the good stuff, and a vacuum moulded tray to keep all the accessories in the right place. Oh, and the lightning effect backing card. And of course a box that reminds you what was in there to begin with. With this array, Hasbro actually acted on an experiment that I alluded to in my mmpr original 7-figure Lightning Collection video, that they should just try and release an entire team in a condensed period where people can jump on board and get everything in 1 year rather than 3 or more. Ninja's managed to do just that in 2022. Similar to the Ninja Turtles, the Ninja Rangers introduced a brand new body mold that we thought could only really be used here, as did the Tenga Warrior. So Hasbro offered up some really exciting, unique sculpts at an opportune time, given that they'd been funneling out lots of similar style figures. Also, this was their last chance to show off how great their figures could look in windowed packaging before the unfortunate switch to plastic-free packaging. So assuming these would last on shelves for a bit longer, it gave them the chance to send the original era of Lightning Collection figures out on a high, and with yet another complete team from Mighty Morphin. Everybody wins. The online sales of the metallic team still had an odd release schedule. They first released Kat in December 2020, they released the next 4 in December 2021, a full year later, and finally Metallic White completed the set in July 2022. The Ninjas, meanwhile, came out first in the UK in January 2022, with the second wave that completed it spotted 6 months later around June 2022 in the US. Hasbro knew plastic-free packaging was coming in hot, and nothing in a plastic box was getting released in 2023. So they definitely had some extra spur in the tank to do a set really quickly and in this nice packaging. I don't think you'll find a collector who doesn't think the new boxes represent a massive downgrade, both in terms of displayability, don't even get me started on the in-box collectors out there, and practically in terms of how your figures and especially their accessories arrive. That experience of plastic-free packaging for me is a disappointment every time. You have this gross scrunchy paper which rips and has bent accessories in. You have this box where they're shoved into odd corners of it. I hate it. I get that it's bigger than me and what I like, but I do wonder what this is doing to my retention over time, because this packaging makes me want the toy less and more stressed out when opening it, because it's effectively a mystery box. You have to open it to see if it's okay or not. And no, I'm not saying give us holes in the packaging. That's not a solution either. Now obviously give me a full team of Ninja Storm and I'll be there in a heartbeat either way. So as we cross into this weird era of teams who will never have matching boxes, even SPD, who started their team collection back in Wave 1, 3 whole years before the Ninjas were started and finished, it's nice and fitting that Hasbro saw out the plastic window era with another full team of matching Mighty Morphins. Once again, a moment of silence for something nice we had that now we do not. Number 3, the power of progress. Let's mention the helmets of the Rangers because there's a ton of fixes here. All but pink and white seem to have been revisited, so the middle wave of 4 really shines. This team gave us our first Red Rangers fixed helmet, an absolutely night and day difference, and one where for a while, I preferred my metallic red over my original or even armoured versions of the figure. You look back and you realise this has never been an easy one to get right, but in recent times they've been getting it more wrong than ever. And I don't just mean Hasbro. Hasbro's Lightning Collection looked squished. And I've always said Bandai's Legacy Collection one looked like it had cat ears instead of being a T-Rex. The original 5-inch Legacy helmet was less offensive, but the scale meant it lacked details, like the teeth. For a while I thought that my 2013 armoured figure had it right, but even that has been fully shown up by this new one. Kudos to the Hasbro guy who fixed it. I believe Dennis Chan, or Always Bumpin' on Twitter is his name. Thanks Josh at Lightning Fig PR for that one. For the Ninja Rangers, unlike the 90s action figures, we don't get any weapons, but those were just made up for the toys anyway, and we get something far more valuable here. A third alternative head. There's been times where I've been wondering what Hasbro will do when we get to seasons where there are reasons for a third head, and I'm glad that they did it like this. Not only do we have the classic version, the style that matches the Bandai 90s originals and gives Kat her own for the first time ever, but they also gave us the Season 3 full mask version, which is how they usually appeared in the show, so that I guess stunt performers could do fight scenes, and obviously so people walking through Angel Grove's parks wouldn't uncover their secret identities. And in the spirit of unmorphed Lightning Collection heads, we even get the headband versions, which most closely mimic the version seen for the majority of the movie, but also promotional pictures, which is one of the only ways you'll have seen Kat this way. And of course that split-second morphin sequence from Season 3, which uses all 3 heads. Well done to 1990s Saban for that very savvy inclusion, making all 3 versions canon. And making no bones about it, we're quite spoiled with this selection. It means whatever look you want to go for with your Ninja Rangers, you can achieve it. It would have been nice if we could have got skin-coloured hands, as that is again closer to the movie version, but maybe it's harder to justify it coming from the TV show context where they generally kept the gloves on. This would have been quite a cool look, and the idea mustn't have fully escaped Hasbro, who have included just such hands, which already found another way to reuse this mould the very next calendar year. Number 2, snakes and ladders. While some things advance, some things rescind. After the Turtles, these were the next drop hip Rangers. The first new ball joint neck ports. They tried a few new things here, but not all of them pay off. The drop hips scare me, to be honest. I said this in my Turtles review. There's not a lot holding these legs on anymore, and they're encouraging you to apply more force on less plastic. The other thing that really sucked about the Ninjas, in that in trying to capture their heavy cloth looks, they leave more prominent gaps in the inseam of the elbows. It's to help articulation, but if you leave them in like a neutral stance, you really notice it. So you kind of are encouraged to always keep them in a fighting pose. And something weird is going on with the waist connector. I've had 3 Adams, and each one has had a loose and noticeable gap there that just won't close no matter how hard I push it. The Ninjas have really interesting shoulder coverings, which are a separate kind of rubbery plastic piece on the arm. It can give you a bit more posing potential if you remember to hold onto it while you spin their arms around. It's no secret at this point to say QC on the first wave of Ninjas was nothing short of a hellscape. Missing heads, hands, scuffed figure bodies, like the worst kind of plane turbulence. That was a rough time. Apparently Hasbro changed production factory to Vietnam around this time, and so that first wave was such a comedy of errors with supplied heads and hands. Gaps between leg pieces and waists are standard, it seems. Loose limbs, muck and scuff on figures and heads and accessories. You're lucky if you don't have black dots on either head or figure themselves. Oh, and if your ninja symbol was actually stenciled centered rather than towards the edge of that circle. My first Aisha figure had eyes looking in two different directions because of how they'd been printed on, so I managed to swap that. The optics, quite literally in that example, were on the whole not good. They just didn't seem to be held to the same account, to the point where we saw a vacancy for a quality control engineer come up on the Hasbro job site. Now this could all be marketing, a quiet acknowledgement that they know their product hasn't been up to scratch lately. It's the closest we'll probably ever get to them holding their hands up and saying, our bad. I know they fixed things like the odd helmet, but this wasn't a botched production choice. This was a cavalcade of errors, bigger than any replacement program could fix. They would have been playing whack-a-mole for weeks trying to diagnose each and every problem that crept in here. And I'd love to say that it was just the ninjas this was happening to, but it obviously hasn't been. That's just what we're talking about today though, so expect this theme to keep coming up in future reviews, at least until Hasbro get their act together here. The metallics, when compared to the original Mighty Morphin suits, are the same but different. The White Ranger started the Lightning Collection way back in Wave 1, but here it concludes the metallic team and has somehow gotten smaller along the way and actually stands shorter than the rest of the team for some reason. It's very slight, but it's there. And don't get me started on the Prince Caspian Tommy head. Someone please let Ben Barnes know he's now a part of the Lightning Collection. Pink Ranger, as the first metallic release, has yellower white parts. You really notice it in the forearm gloves and boots. Even her Zeo crystal is yellower. It's a shame because her release was obviously marooned a full year out from the rest, and it really shows in the tone of that. I did need to do a lot of swapping on my white, red and yellow Rangers to get versions I was happy with. Tommy's ab joint was loose, another callback that I actually remember from my Wave 1 White Ranger. Rocky had misprints on his helmet, and to be honest, the version I've kept has a belt buckle that seems to want to veer inwards into the gap for it. And Aisha's helmet also had bad print originally, and her power coin was painted offset from the mould. Again, these are slight problems to some, but I'm using close-up and macro shots for photos and videos. I can't be seeing these errors for the next 2, maybe 3 decades, thinking to myself, oh, I wonder if I just tried a bit harder at the time to get it fixed. Would I be happier now? So trust me, if you're the type of person to get annoyed each time you see an error, do yourself a favour and do the painful life admin of swapping them. Do it now. Play the snakes and ladders. Number 1, To Tenga or Tengu. What do you guys think the ninjas and Tengu warriors are based on? The movie or the 3rd season? They recently used the phrase inspired by the movie to describe their Yellow Ranger roleplay morpher, and I think that's definitely an influence again here. The Tenga itself, probably one of the most impressive figures of the entire line, offers a hint too. There's been rumoured talk, and I've been guilty of it myself, that Hasbro doesn't actually have the rights to use Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie stuff in merchandise. You'll recall Bandai only really did Ivan Ooze, the Ectomorphicons, Morden and the Tengu back in the 90s, with the Megazord and figures based much more prominently off the TV show designs. Maybe that was a moulding thing. Then in 2015 they did the movie suits for the first time, and they were fantastic, the best figures released in that smaller scale. Naturally, people are looking to Hasbro to one day try and do those shiny leather suits justice. We'll see, I think they'll be more dull like the Beast Morphers ones, but it seems that for now they have to keep it to what appeared on the show only. Now, it's not like Hasbro, the billion-dollar toy corp with license negotiations going on all the time with Disney, can't just pay and ask for another property license, and the recent crossovers with Turtles and Street Fighter prove that these kind of deals are going on all the time between companies. So I feel it's just a matter of time until we're talking about Hasbro versions of those movie suits. Until then though, it's fun to pretend that these Ninja Rangers are meant to be from that, even if we can't label them as such. The Ninja Rangers and the Tengas provided such a through line across both the motion picture and the TV series, so it's fine to imagine. Then again, there's another weight the TV representation has, and that's Ninja. For now, he's only available as a basic mmpr fliphead figure, but it gives you an opportunity to show their Season 3 setup for how they first got their ninja powers for the second time, ignoring Dulcea's Ninjetti fire pit ceremony. Their gloves are TV show style, but they did wear the gloves in the movie initially too, when they first get their Ninjetti powers. They just take them off while still at the temple, and they don't come back when they put their hoods up. The Tenga recolored 2-pack, yeah, I'm glad I didn't wait for that and just bought loads of the regular Tengas on sale. At one point they were down to like $7.99 a figure, so I've got more than I will ever need of this thing. But let's give it its flowers, because this, I think, is still one of the most impressive Lightning Collection figures of all time. And it was in a basic wave of 4, and it really feels like no expense was spared. I wish we got these style of figures more often. You got multiple versions of the wings, you got an opening beak, the metallic paint, the egg. This makes for such a fun battle scene because of the heft of these guys, how interactive they are and how posable they've managed to make them. Whichever of the 3 teams you go for from Season 3, Ninja Ranger Power, the regular suits, or the metallic armour, Tengas stand out and look so impressive in each battle sequence. They really earn their place against any of the incarnations of the team. Putties and super putties and cogs are fine and everything, but wow, these were the pinnacle of the Power Rangers foot soldier. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter whether you think they're movie or TV show, these are the rare circumstances of figures that meet either brief, and in a line so good at making you double or sometimes even triple dip to get everything, let's take the victories where we can, hey? So that's it on the Season 3 or movie figures of the Lightning Collection so far. I didn't draw much attention to the mmpr regular pink cat, but that's there too, giving you another head for her and of course her cat mode. I think if you'd told me when the Lightning Collection started that Hasbro were going to do these, I would have said no to the metallics and a resounding yes to the ninjas. Turns out I bought both teams and I'm happy about it. The Bandai versions were classics in my collection back in the day, and I'm glad Hasbro found a way to do them justice and beat out the clock on that packaging downgrade so that we can enjoy them in the same way that we could the original 7. Let me know what you guys think of these teams, either in the comments or on my Instagram at powerrangergram, and until the next time, see you later. Hey again, so 6 years ago, back in 2017, I started Power Ranger Tube as a way to share my thoughts on Power Rangers toys of the past and present, and occasionally get into other more lore-based theories on the show and franchise as a whole. Now, nearly 100 videos, 15,000 subscribers and 3 million views later, I've decided to begin on Patreon. First up, nobody panic, the channel is staying as it is. I'm still committed to continually going up the past Megazord timeline, reviewing Hasbro's recent efforts, and coming soon, my trilogy of videos on the Legacy line. So as well as all of that, why am I now adding Patreon to the mix as well? Well, partially it's to see if I can get support from any folks out there who appreciate my stuff. And crucially, I only wanted to start offering members only content once it felt right, and that I'd figured out a way to do it where it could be different supplementary stuff from the main channel. I finally worked that out, and once you join my Patreon on what I'm currently calling the $5 viewing globe tier, you'll be able to see new videos from me that I think you'd like, but that I'd worry that the algorithm wouldn't. From launch, you'll be able to see my first 4 videos, an epilogue to this Ninja Ranger review, where I'm on my own ninja quest to make the figures look more screen accurate using 3D printed pieces. I'm starting Communicator Track, where I revisit my original videos with a new audio commentary. Have the years changed my views from back then? And lastly, I'm delivering some hot takes that I've wanted to say for a while, starting with, was Billy's original exit storyline homophobic? And then why is now actually the perfect time for him to return? So yeah, I haven't been resting on my laurels with this. Any of you that are interested, I think you're going to like what you find over there. And thank you for 6 years so far. Here's to many more.